Yeah, hands down, the biggest mistake any business makes on their website is making it about them and not making it about their visitors.
Yes.
Just like if you think about your website as like a brick and mortar store, right? When they come into your store, you want them to feel the experience. You want them to understand who you are. You want them to be excited about you, the product they're about to buy or their service they're about to buy. You want them to be like, oh, this is the thing that I have always needed that I didn't know that I needed. I mean, like, why are we all buying stuff off Instagram all the time, right? Like, we're seeing something, they're making us feel awesome, and we're like, I must have that now. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And so your website is the same. So don't talk about yourself. Talk about the pain point that you solve and how you solve it.
Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I'm excited about today's guest, Sami. I'm going to try to do this right. Bedell-Mulhern.
Perfect.
There we go. So in my defense, what did she do right before we hit record? She told me 7 different ways people get her name wrong. And then we hoped I was going to remember the one.
Hey, as a fellow podcast host, like getting through that first introduction is like once you're done, you're like, okay,
we're golden. Don't embarrass your guest. Go from there. All right. So why don't you give everybody a more official introduction to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Sami. I am a digital marketing strategist. We support mostly nonprofit organizations in their website design, getting more conversions from their website, and then retaining those donors through content marketing and email marketing.
Fantastic. And here's what I love about the nonprofit space. When done correctly, it's being run like a business in the same way that you run a business in the for-profit space.
Yeah, it's no different. Nonprofits make money. They run a business. They provide a service. And so you need to treat your business as such. And I think it's amazing, and you've seen this too, how like very successful business owners will get involved in the nonprofit space and all of a sudden forget everything they knew about running their own successful business.
Absolutely. But what I love about this, and the reason I keyed up that way, is I really want to get into this conversation with you about websites. And I just want people to understand, just because you happen to focus on the nonprofit doesn't mean that all of these things, they are absolutely applicable in the for-profit world. So 100%. If we were going to shortcut it for entrepreneurs, what is your top things you see in a website? I'll let you decide. You can choose your own adventure. You can talk about your biggest mistakes or the biggest wins. Let's get some people some tangible takeaways here on their websites and what they need to be doing.
Yeah, hands down, the biggest mistake any business makes on their website is making it about them and not making it about their visitors. Yes. Just like if you think about your website as like a brick and mortar store, right? When they come into your store, you want them to feel the experience. You want them to understand who you are. You want them to be excited about you, the product they're about to buy or their service they're about to buy. You want them to be like, oh, this is the thing that I have always needed that I didn't know that I needed. I mean, like, why are we all buying stuff off Instagram all the time, right? Like we're seeing something, they're making us feel awesome. And we're like, I must have that now. Yeah, exactly. Totally. And so your website is the same. So don't talk about yourself. Talk about the pain point that you solve and how you solve it.
I love that. And I think you just gave people, I'm a big fan of a almost exaggerated example that helps us really remember the message. Could you imagine if you went into, I'm going to date myself here, but it's the example that came to me, Marshall Fields, which no longer exists. It was bought by Macy's, but Marshall Field was like a person, right? Mm-hmm. Could you imagine if you walked into a large upscale department store and all of the signage was about the owner of the store? How ridiculous would that be?
Yeah, like why do I care? What is Marshall going to tell me about what I should be
Right.
wearing? Marshall doesn't know me.
Marshall doesn't know me. And like knowing Victoria's Secrets, it's an old guy that lives, it's an old man that lives in Ohio,
Yeah.
right? Right. So could you imagine walking into Victoria's Secret and all of the signage was about the old man that lived in Ohio who created it?
Yeah.
Your
No,
website.
you're selling a story, you're selling the experience, you're selling your values, you're selling who you are. And I think the other thing that I really like people to think about on this topic is when people come to our website, yes, we're trying to convert them into customers, but we're also trying to self-select out the people that aren't the right fit. Everybody is not the right fit for what we do and how we do it. So why do we want to like shoot out all this messaging to make everybody feel good? So then everybody comes to us. We waste so much time validating those clients or those customers or those donors or those whatever. But if we can have everything be 100% in alignment and consistent, then we're only bringing in as customers the people that are the best fits for us. So that's going to lead to better retention, better time management, all of the things, and higher revenues overall.
And I think that's just, it's a scarcity mindset fear. If I exclude somebody, I'm gonna lose the money they would have given me.
Yep.
And that's not really how that works.
No, the opposite happens, right? We've both seen this. People get confused. They don't know if this is the product for them. So now the people that are your best customers aren't buying because they don't really know what's happening here. What do I do with this? Where is this? I'm going to go find somebody else that knows and is more in connection with me. And I think we're going to see that even more as Gen Z grows up in age, because they are a finicky bunch of shoppers who don't want to be sold to. So if you don't make them feel connected and like them, you've lost them as a customer immediately.
Before you even ever had a shot. So you were talking about messaging, and outcome-based messaging is one of my pillars as well. Absolutely. And at the same time, we do know that people buy from people they know, like, and trust. So how do you find that balance between being your authentic self, creating your personal brand that people know, like, and trust, and now we're also telling them in the same breath that your website's not supposed to be about you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that validation comes in a lot of different spaces. And so I think you have to take a hard look at your industry. So like if you're in financial, like, those accreditations and those seals and those whatever, like all of that is going to be great and important, right? So it really depends on the industry that you're in and how kind of specific and serious that needs to be. But we can build trust with all sorts of things like our blog or adding information on our website, like testimonials, like conversations, video, podcast episodes, like the content that you create can build that trust because people can dive deeper with you. But I think it's also really understanding who you serve and that they need it the way that you do it and clearly defining that piece. So like there's 10,000 digital marketers, probably even more than that, right, in the world. And anybody like could go like, why do people choose me to help them with their strategy versus another nonprofit strategist? Yes, they're going to look and they're going to learn about me. They're going to see some of the examples of the work that I do, but my style and the way that I approach it is going to jive better than somebody else. Like, we're not all the right fit for people. So I don't know if that really answers your question in a concise way.
Well, it touches on it because if you're authentic, the way that I try to describe this, so what do you think about this? If you're authentic in how you deliver your content, people are going to extrapolate who it is that you are, right? If all you're doing is base level how-to content, no personality, straightforward, and most entrepreneurs really just aren't like that anyway, then no, they wouldn't get to have that feel for who you are. But kind of like you said, if you put your spin on it so that the people who are a match with you get to match with you, the know, like, and trust factor can still be delivered through education-based marketing and outcome-based messaging.
Right. Like, I think it's like the sales funnel. Like, we have to think about when you're making your buying decision, right? I want to first be like, okay, yeah, she gets me. Okay, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper. Then you dive a little bit deeper and you're like, oh yeah, this blog post is super interesting and she's got some great information here. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper. And like, as you dive deeper, like those outcomes become more and more important, because if I land on your page and all I see is charts and data and results and all of that, like, I'm also going to be a little bit like, this is too much for me to process right away. So I think it's understanding where to put things in order to reach people where they're at in the buying decision.
And so the whole thing about giving too much information, to me, it comes from the same place in the scarcity or fear thinking of, I have to accept everybody. So I have to accept everybody because I'm scared to say no to anybody. And let me give them all my information to prove to them that I am smart enough to do the thing. And that's not actually, neither of those things are of service to yourself, but they're really not of service to your audience either.
No. And when you think, I mean, like early in my business, I know I did this. You take everybody, you're not exactly sure what it is that you want to do, but you very quickly understand that the people that aren't in alignment with you take the most energy, take the most time, pay you the least amount of money. And you're just looking at yourself like, why am I doing that?
And none of you walk away happy, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's like bad process, bad experience, bad results. Yeah, let's not do that anymore.
Yep. And I think the other thing that's important on your homepage is really making it clear. You might do 8 different things, but what is the most important thing that you're doing right now that is going to generate the income that you need, that's going to generate the right people? So I think we also have a tendency to word vomit on our homepage. Like, we do 15 things and here's how you can find all of that information, but really be hyper specific about, like, on your homepage, what is the most important thing that I need to do in the next quarter and maybe in the next quarter after that, and that's it. Then go back every quarter and adjust your homepage, just move things around. It's not hard to make sure that it's in alignment with exactly what you're promoting so people see it right away.
I love that. I absolutely love that, because the other thing that does is it shares your expertise as a guide and a thought leader, instead of sharing your knowledge, which is, here's a, table of contents of everything I know. I'm going to let you pick what you need. When most of us are in businesses because the people come to us don't know what they need. Mm-hmm. They know they have a problem, but they don't know. If they knew what they needed, that'd be different.
Right. Well, and if they know what they needed, they're probably coming to your website from a different avenue, not your homepage.
Yeah. So I want to get into a little bit, because you mentioned this a couple times. You mentioned the word retention. Mm-hmm. And it's a mistake I've made. It's a mistake I've seen other people make. It's a costly mistake, or I'll just say expensive mistake, where 99% of our efforts are put into getting new clients and 1% into retaining the clients that we have. However, I think most of us define our website as a client attraction, part of client attraction. So as a digital marketing expert, where does that play with retention?
Great question. So a couple of places. So number one, when people are coming to your website and it looks exactly the same all the time, that lowers your retention, because they're like, oh, nothing new is happening, right? Like, we know we have these lurkers. We know we have these people that come and go. We both have had people that have come to us years later and been like, I've been following you for years, but I just wasn't ready. I'm ready now, right?
Yeah.
So your website having consistent and regular information on there, even though you don't always know who's lurking, if your website just stays the same and looks outdated, then you're going to lose that opportunity. I know that's not quite retention. That's still kind of like new people, but we want to keep their...
As an entrepreneur, it's so true, because as an entrepreneur, I will tell you that it didn't occur to me, and this is like dumb that I haven't connected these dots, but here we go. It didn't occur to me that my audience comes back to my website. And yet, and this is where, the people that I follow and the people that I'm immersed with I do go back to their
Yep.
websites every so often for one reason or another.
Well, and we're doing other things that are staying top of mind, right? Podcasts and things like that. And so if I'm somebody who's like, oh yeah, I haven't worked with Erin in a while, but she was amazing. This podcast just showed up and I want to share it with somebody. I'm going to go look at your website before I share it again. So you're not only losing retention of maybe existing customers, but that ability for them to be like, oh, well, this looks exactly the same. Like they've got events on their page that are showing from 2021. Like there's these little mistakes, right? Where we're like, I'm not going to share this now because I don't even know if they're in business. Right.
That's so, okay. So let's go down that rabbit hole because it makes me absolutely bonkers. Here we go. Your shit should match and be updated or take it down. Take it down.
Yeah. I mean, like we work with nonprofits and I tell them all the time, like your website is a reflection. If your donors are coming to your website and they see sponsorship from like an event that hasn't existed for a while or nothing's new, like you lose credibility immediately. And there is no excuse because it is not expensive. If your website is not working for you, then change that process. But it is not expensive and it is not difficult to manage websites these days. They make them so easy.
Well,
so if your system isn't working, change it.
I promise there's a volunteer who's like 17 who can do it for you.
Yeah.
In terms of changing a date.
Yep.
Interestingly, and it's funny that you say that because interestingly enough, there's a local place here that I've been looking about volunteering at because I moved and the place I used to volunteer at is now too far. And when I go on their website, it literally says it's still stuck where due to the COVID lockdown, we're not talking to people about volunteers right now. Yeah, that's not a thing anymore. Not that COVID's not a thing anymore, but we've decided it doesn't matter, right? So we've decided we're just business, right? So, and it makes me wonder, and we do understand, maybe we give them a little bit of leeway because I know what they're doing and they're busy, but show that you have your act together, even more importantly in the entrepreneur world.
But to your point at the beginning, now like whoever you are, you're running a business.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit before we started, like whether you're a solopreneur that's just getting started, whether you're a huge organization that has thousands of employees, like your website, if anybody hears your company name, they're going to your website to check you out.
Yep.
Period. End of story. And if what they see when they get there looks like a whole hot mess, then they're gonna be like, oh, I don't know. Like you lose trust immediately. It's hard to gain trust, but like you will lose that trust immediately and they will be gone. Now I say this, we are in the middle of revamping our website. So it looks like a hot mess right now because some of the pages are not consistent with the others, but we're in transition and we're working through it. Huh?
The temporary situation.
Yeah, but it's a very important process to look at and to pay attention. And I want to touch on one other thing when we're talking about retention and your website is I am a huge component that if you do not have an email marketing strategy in place, then you are missing out on everything. And we don't need to dive too deep into that, but email marketing should be something that you should really have on your plate for 2023.
Love what you're learning here and interested in more? Check out conqueryourbusiness.com to get immediate access to all sorts of additional resources and stay updated on our upcoming training events. I absolutely agree with you because one of the things we can go set the stage several different ways. Social media platforms are businesses. Social media platforms are targets of government, and you don't own them. So
zero control. We get mad. I always find it interesting when people get mad at Facebook for not promoting their business more. Facebook's a business. Have you paid them to promote your business? Then why should you expect them to? They're not a they're not a charity. And, as an example, and the government is out to get them for, you can agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. The privacy rules change on how ads work and retargeting. You own zero of that.
and it can go away tomorrow. And I'll add one more thing to it. There are more and more and more people who do nothing but try to hack into those systems all day long. They are increasingly hackable, and the owners of those platforms have shown they cannot stop it. So it could go away tomorrow for a variety of different reasons.
Yep. 100%. And it's just like, for me, like, email marketing has had the highest ROI of anything you can do on digital. Like, the number hasn't changed for like 5 years. And so, I think people get stuck on, well, you're telling me a 20% open rate is great and a 2% click-through rate. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, so they hear these numbers in their head and they're like, but I feel so much better about saying I got 10,000 impressions for that social media post, but like nobody did anything. Like, they didn't click, they didn't like go anywhere. So I think we really have to change our mindset around what some of these numbers look like, and really just be tracking. Doesn't mean it has to be crazy, but like, hey, it's really easy. I sent this email, 8 people clicked. I can look at my sales sheet and see that right after that email, I made 5 sales. Like, it's much easier to really pay attention to, test, tweak, refine. And I think email marketing is also a great place to start testing your language kind of, and see how you maybe want to be changing what's on your homepage. Oh, this email worked really well. These words worked really well. Maybe I should put them in other places.
I should use them. Maybe I should use that.
Yep.
So going back to branding, how does your digital presence, whether it's your social media platforms, your website, your email marketing, how do you recommend people use that to not just to develop their brand, but like as their credential? I always say that's the mere visual of it is your credential.
I mean, it's I think in all things marketing, it's consistency. How we have like a 3-second attention span right now, something crazy, like less than a goldfish.
Totally.
So you want to make sure that in anything you're doing, people know, right? Like, oh, that is the first click. I see, I recognize that color. It doesn't mean that we don't need to get stuck in like, well, my photography all has to have the same filter. It needs to be all the same, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can get there, but it's more like, if you have an e-commerce store, like, are you taking all of your product shots in a way that like looks consistent? So if then I'm sharing those products on social media, I, as a consumer, can recognize, oh, that's XYZ company, right? Am I using my logo in a consistent manner so it doesn't look all tweaked and weird in a bunch of different places? Are my colors kind of consistent in some of the things that I'm creating? So it doesn't have to be huge, it's just consistency, so people can automatically recognize when they're scrolling or when they're on your website or they see a podcast, oh yeah, that's that brand that I like. I'm gonna pause and take a look at what they're doing.
And so when I had previous business working with families with aging parents, I worked with hoarders. It was one of the things that I did. And I heard a quote that had to do with hoarders and organization, but to me, it also has to do with branding. And it was the idea that the size of your house is not a reflection of the size of your heart, but the condition of your home is a reflection of the condition of your mind. And I would say the same, right? Oh my God, right? The same thing about your branding. And we were chatting before we hit record that you could be the best dentist in the world. But if your website and your LinkedIn and your Facebook and your emails don't have anything to, if they're all mishmash and don't look good, they're going to assume you're a bad dentist.
Yeah. Well, and listen, there's no excuse anymore with tools like Canva and, all of the free stock imagery things, like the resources that we have as small business owners. Like, there's no excuse. You can't say, well, we don't have a graphic designer, we can't afford this, that, or the other. Like, literally, if you're struggling with this, just go to Canva, pick a template and stick with it. Like, we tend to be like, oh, well, this didn't work this time, so now I'm going to change it, and then I'm going to change this, and then I'm going to do something different over here, and then you forget where you put things. So then you don't even know where to go back to change it when you changed it the time before, right? So just stick with it.
Well, and what I love about what you're saying, if people are really paying attention, consistency, reasonable quality, outcome-based messaging. The one thing you have not said is complex.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to
Well,
be complex.
do one thing really well, then do the next thing, then do the next thing, then do the next thing. But I think we take a look at marketing from a holistic approach, but like your website is like the center of that wheel. Like everything else comes out from that. So get your website solid, get it to a place where you're like, this messaging makes sense. Our products are clearly displayed. Our pain point is displayed. We're talking to our ideal donor, and it's easy for people to find what they need to find. Then that is what, then go clean up your social media, then go set up your email marketing, then go, do the things off of that. But everything, so when you make a change on your website, you need to change it in these other places. But your website always needs to be spot on.
And it's interesting just for a different perspective. And I think it has to do, I don't think you and I disagree. I think it has to do with where someone is in their business journey. And I have a lot of the beginners that I work with will play on their website instead of doing anything else. And for those people, if you're just getting started and you need to be taking action, I will often tell people, put an under construction sign up on your website and use LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Don't let these things stop you. Don't let the fact that your website and LinkedIn don't look the same stop you.
Yeah.
But shortcut it so that you're not doing the needle moving activities.
Well, you bring up a good point, and I'm glad you said that, because we have some website projects that take 2 years to complete, and we have some that take 6 weeks. And the only difference is in the owner or the decision maker. And so get real with yourself. If you find yourself sitting here and you're like, I can't launch my website because this, that, and the other, or if you're nitpicking a photo, or you're nitpicking a divider line, or like you're finding all of these things, it is not your website. Get it out there and get it started, because you can't test anything if you don't have something out there to test. And marketing is all about testing. But usually what that means is that you have a mindset thing happening where you're afraid to put yourself out there. You're afraid to put your idea out there. You're afraid to launch the thing. Right. And so, yes, I'm glad you said that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Websites are always changing and evolving. And the thing I tell my clients, which they hate, is you put it out there, nobody's going to see it.
I say that all the time. I'm like, I got good news for you and I got bad news for you. Nobody sees this. I'm like, the good news is if it's not so great, nobody really sees it. The bad news is you really want people to see it. They still don't see it.
It's a part of a whole process, and it takes time. And I know, that's my favorite. It's part of the reason why we stopped doing like major SEO projects, because I hated going to clients and being like, hey, yeah, you need to pay us for a year, but we will guarantee zero results because we can't control the algorithms, and we'll do the best we can. I mean,
it's
not to say you shouldn't be doing SEO, but it's all about testing. It's all about getting it out there. And if you don't get it out there, then you're going to have zero results.
You're going to have zeros. Absolutely. So let's just leave it.
Tough love. I know that's not a very positive spin on the work we do, is it?
All right, let's do a hack then. If you were to give, so let's end up on a high note then. If you were to tell people, we talked about consistency, we talked about outcome-based language, we talked about it doesn't have to be complex, we talked about get going, done is better than perfect. What is, if you just want to share a win, a client win, your win that came of doing this work, so we can leave people on a message of hope and
yeah. Well, I mean, I think we just need to be real with ourselves in the expectations that we set around what we do. And I guess the thing that I would like to leave people with is the biggest mistake that I made in my business in the beginning was trying to do everything all at once. And that's when then you become frazzled and you aren't doing anything well, because you're like, oh, I got to be posting on this platform 6 times a day, and I got to be creating all these videos, and now I got to be on YouTube. And then, oh, somebody just told me about this random new platform. I got to get on that first so that I can get in front of these audiences. And you're just kind of all over the place. So I would really just take a minute, take a look at your goals, and really figure out what is the one thing that's going to help me make progress towards that goal in the online space. So maybe it's cleaning up your website. Maybe it's email marketing. Maybe you've got those things solid and you're rocking it. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing reels, because like that's something that's really good. But stop listening to everybody saying you have to do everything all at once.
Yeah.
We just finished up a year-end campaign for a nonprofit client, and with just the simple act of adding a very strategic email marketing campaign, increased their donations by almost $30,000 from the year before in just that month. And so we were hyper specific. We just added in one thing because they know they're in this for the long haul. And so now we have better metrics. So now we're talking about how that stays consistent through the next year and how we're going to add something else now to that December campaign for 2023. But it's not this frazzled, we have to do everything all at once in order to hit this goal.
And everybody should realize that that's fantastic news. The fact that you don't have to do everything and can still be really successful is lightning, like great news.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so now we're redoing their website and working on cleaning up that piece of it. Like that's, the next phase. So one thing at a time. Take it slow and you'll see much better results.
And it's so true. And I say the hard work is the inner work, because you can't pay anybody to do it, right? I can pay somebody to do the website. I can't pay anybody to get myself out of my way. And really, if you just prioritize your initiatives and then focus on staying out of your own way of playing squirrel or trying to rush it.
Yes. Oh, okay. So I know we're trying to wrap this up, but this is my favorite thing. I have whatever project management tool you use. And if you don't, then just get a plain old manila folder. But what I do is because I'm all about personal development, when I'm learning about something, I get excited about something, I'll take a look at it and say, okay, is that a good strategy for the things that I've already decided are my goals for this year? And if it's no, then it goes in my not right now folder. And I put it into my toolbox and I say, you know what? Great. And then every quarter when we're reevaluating kind of where are we at towards our goals, what's working, what's not, I have that folder that I can go to and just say, okay, are any of these cool strategies that I've been learning about going to help me? Yeah, no. Okay. Then they stay there. So you're not getting rid of them, and you have then a stockpile of all these ideas that you've learned about to go revisit for when the time is right.
Perfect. I have that. It's called Ideas on Hold.
Yeah, I love that. And mine's my not right now folder.
Right. Not right now. Ideas on hold. It's to get it out of my head so I can stop
100%.
obsessing out, because I'll obsess over it and it's taking up energy I don't have to give it. So absolutely love it. Yes. Huge, huge, huge tip. So if people want to learn more about you, follow you on all your journeys, learn more about what you do, what's the easiest way to get a hold of you or find you?
Yeah. So the best thing is just to go to thefirstclick.net, depending on when this podcast goes live. It may still be in mid-construction, but it should be done in a little bit.
Say it again. We'll make sure we're timed right.
Thefirstclick.net. And then I'm most active on LinkedIn. So that's a great place. Yep. And then if you're in the nonprofit space, Digital Marketing Therapy is our podcast.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, your insights, your energy, your awesomeness, the correct pronunciation of your name. That was great.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.